Dear Rabbi, we are here in Lakewood, in New Jersey on this Kaf Aleph Be'Elul 2014 to conduct this interview for my program Profiles of Faith with Rabbi Yosef Mendelevitch. Rabbi Mendelevitch is a famous Soviet Jewry refusnik, prisoner of Zion, inspiring teacher, renowned author, scholar, and above all, a real hero of the Jewish people. Rabbi, how do you prefer to be called?
Yosef Mendelevitch. Call me Yosef.
Okay.
That's the best.
Your story is so fantastic and shows such unbelievable strength and miraculous outcome. It can be said that your act had a huge impact on Jewish history, the state of Israel, and likely on the world at large, where your cause was used to crack the Soviet Empire. I want to hear your story and how it came about and the price you paid for your courage and devotion. Let me first introduce you to some of the people who are too young to have heard about you. Rav Mendelevitch, then just a young 30-year-old Yosef Mendelevitch, was an underground Jewish activist who taught Hebrew and helped organize other illegal Jewish activities in oppressive Russia of the late 1960s and early 70s. In 1970, he planned, together with fellow activists, Demshitz, Kuznetsov, and other famous names from the pantheon of Soviet Jewry, to hijack a Russian airplane to fly it to Europe, where they intended to publicize the plight of the persecuted Soviet Jews, which was an unknown subject at the time. But the KGB knew of their plot, arrested them, and sent them to serve in hard labor camps. The West learned of their case and eventually forced their release. Rav Mendelevitch served 11 years in Russian Gulag before finally being released and emigrating to Israel. Rabbi, before I ask you about your fantastic story, please tell us about your Jewish background, your upbringing in Riga, where you were born, and later in Russia. We know the Jewish practice was forbidden in the Soviet Union, so how did you discover your Judaism?
Latvia, my native place, was occupied by Russia only during the Second World War. My parents, my father and my mother, got a Jewish education. Not like other Russian Jews, Soviet Jews. My father was Jewish, not assimilated, but he was a Jewish communist. He believed that the communism will solve all the problems, and as well my mother. So it's a mixed background somehow, and it's why as a communist they would almost never discuss some Jewish issues, but they would speak Yiddish. It's the only language that they did know, and they were somehow interested in Jewish culture and Jewish poetry. My father loved Bialik, and he would recite him in Yiddish, all his verses. And so, you know, everything was open.
Did you go to Cheder? Did you learn Hebrew? Did you learn Jewish education?
Everything was forbidden. There was no Chedorim, nothing.
So where did you pick up the influences, the Jewish influences?
It's a miracle. It's a miracle for me. You know, there is no explanation.
But how? Where?
Where? As I mentioned, my father spoke Yiddish. It's a classic Yiddish that has some 30% of Hebrew. So it's how, you know, I was exposed to Hebrew or to Lashon Kodesh all the time. Yeah. And by the way, my father taught me some Hebrew when I was a child. Another development which I believe influenced my life is that my father was arrested when I was 10 years old. At that time, the Soviet regime would arrest a lot of Jews, accusing them in economical subversive activities, for the Russian nation was poor, Soviet Union was poor, and they looked for scapegoats to blame and explain why they are poor. Certainly the Jews are robbing them. So my father was arrested, and you can understand that it changed my mind to make me understand that indeed I don't belong to them. I am different, and I will tell you another story that may depict how it was about. When my father, after interrogation, was brought to the trial, we, my mother and my two sisters, went to see him. So you can see the picture of a big building of the court, and from another side, a small family, afraid, trembling, what will happen with the father. And I remember that I felt that I can help my father. And I start telling, I ask you, help my father. I promise you I will be a good boy. Just take my father out from the prison, I will do whatever needed. Then I ask myself, whom am I telling it, what's that? Now it's obvious that it was my first experience of prayer. Without knowing that there is a God, and without being educated as a religious man, I discovered the God in myself. I felt that there is some powers that can help out, much more powerful than the Soviet court. So it is my first experience of dialogue with God. It's very special. So the family was broken. My father was sentenced to 5 years of imprisonment, and my mother got ill. He was crushed altogether, and she passed away. We lost everything. Then later on, my father was found innocent. He came back home, but there was no home. The mother was dead. The father was ill. I found myself that I don't belong. There is a saying about Avraham Avinu that he is called Avraham Ivri, and it means that he was from one side and all other from another side. So it's exactly about me. All of them, the powers were from one side, and I was alone. And it was the general feeling of every Jew. You don't like me, you don't want me, okay, I will be alone. So it's a life of a Jew. To be all the time himself alone, himself.
So the source of every person is the spark, an event that happens to trigger that. Now, at what age did you start your underground?
Right away in Riga. A decision was made, I believe, at age 17. But I went on as a regular Soviet child. I studied regularly in a school, and I became a member of communist youth movement, and I had some kind of, thinking to become an engineer, whatever, every regular. I was still not aware about the process that are going inside me. And there were developments that helped me to find out what's on. A lot of things, Again, in each situation, I could decide to be or not to be. When I'm telling the story and you look to my pathway, it looks like a very straight way. But remember, each time it was a critical point, and I had each time to make a decision. I never thought that it will look like very straight. It was not easy. For example, when at age 16, I decided to go to work in the factory to bring some parnasa to my family. So imagine a Jewish boy, age 16, in a Russian factory. A lot of drunkards cursing, they could spoil me easily, saying, sit with us, drink vodka, you are a real man. A man is drinking vodka, what's about you? You are a girl? You are ashamed? And my decision was, in no way, I am not sitting with them. I hated to be part of them, but I easily could join them, but I hated it. It's a small decision. And then in the evening we would go to high school to continue our education. I mean, a lot of youngsters in Soviet Russia at that time would work during the day and study in the evenings. It was another critical point that I arrived to a specific high school. It was grade 10, that a lot of the students were Jewish. In my city, that was not a big one, but like 1 million of residents, were only some 35,000 Jews, all dispersed all around. And statistically, you can almost have no possibility to see Jews. Here, in the school, in my class, I had almost a majority of Jews. And it's how I got the feeling of being a part of something bigger. We were friends, we were a group. If there were Russians or Latvian in our class, they understood that they are minority. And it's a paradox. So it gives you a feeling of strength. And then it turned out that in this specific class, some of the youngsters were involved already in underground Jewish activities.
What year was that?
It was 63, 64.
Wow.
A friend of mine stood up a certain day and told, today is a new year, we don't study, it's a Jewish New Year. I was surprised. I thought, what? The Jews have a different New Year? It's the level of my ignorance. He told, yeah, you know, the Jews, it's a Jewish New Year. So what to do? They are going to a synagogue. I told, me going to the synagogue? I would like to be a scientist. I have nothing to do with the religion. But all the friends went away, so I felt bad to stay alone. I followed them. I felt bad about that, to go to the synagogue, you know, a dark place, what to do there. But we never entered the synagogue. There was a gathering outside the synagogue. And we met, and there were more youngsters, Jewish boys and girls. Beautiful, you know. It's how we got our Jewish community. Being separated, dispersed, all of a sudden, I had a big Jewish community. Agree that it's a very important development. Again, it was a decision. I could stay in a classroom and not to go. For a while, I was a good student, so I can't miss a lecture. But I decided to go. I can go on for a longer time there. Just to explain, each time you have to make a decision.
Yes. At some point, you found yourself in a group of like-minded people,
right,
who felt different and were united around a cause.
Yeah.
And that cause was a Jewish life that was forbidden in the Soviet Union, and to create
Israel. Our dream was Israel.
What was your goal?
We established in 1966 an underground organization of Jewish students to prevent assimilation, to educate our nation, to make them remember that they are Jewish, teach them Jewish history, Jewish tradition, and finally look for a possibility to leave Russia and to go to settle in Israel. In this position, I was already a leader. I don't know how I became a leader, but people looked at me as a leader because maybe I am more, how to say, more energetic, more emotional, and
Still are.
you know, thank God, Baruch Hashem. Anyway, they looked me as a leader, and being a leader, it is a responsibility. You start thinking differently. The moment you understand that you are doing something for your nation, it's now the issue not of your personal interest, it's always an issue what to do for our case, for our national case.
So you wanted basically to affect young people like yourself 10 years earlier to grow up with what you were missing, which is an identity, a Jewish identity.
Being Jewish, I discovered that it's a real joy in life. I love being Jewish. For me, I was small, nobody, as a Russian citizen, and all of a sudden, being Jew, I discovered that I can do something in my life. So I enjoyed it. And the moment you love something, you try to share your love with other people. So I had not a special task to save my nation. I just loved it, and I tried to tell friends, it's beautiful, you know. Come, be together, let's enjoy life.
So you basically loved being Jewish, you discovered your destiny, and you wanted to share it people at large. But from that, and having even an underground group to planning to hijack a plane, something has had to have happened. How did you make the transition to an organized action?
To begin with, that time, we managed to establish a nationwide underground organization with chapters in different places. So we had a chapter there in Leningrad, and we got to know that there is a certain Jewish pilot, Mr. Dimshit, that suggests to take over a Russian airplane, and he is looking for volunteers to join him. So obviously, you know, My dream in my life, to try to go to Israel. Why not to join? Again, people would say, but it is dangerous, you can be killed, you can be arrested. But when you love something and when you enjoy something, there is no question of risking your life. I told friends, it's my life. It's my life. If I would know that there is an effort like that and I'm not participating, I would hate me all the life. That I missed this operation. It was like a dream, to be a part, to struggle. Later on, for the beginning, as I mentioned, it was mostly the initiative of people in Leningrad, but later on, the group in Leningrad decided that they wouldn't continue. For they felt that it may be counterproductive, maybe they are already watched and followed by secret services. Now it was my turn. We called up Mr. Dimshitz, that himself was interested to continue, and told Mark, his name is Mark, we continue, we are going forward. So we pushed. Now we start pushing it, and indeed, during a month we put together, there was a beautiful plan to hijack this airplane. In fact, it was not a real hijacking. For hijacking means that terrorists, or some of them, are fighting with a pilot and has some kind of political demands. We had to buy, and we bought tickets on a very small airplane that had a destination to go close to Finnish border. There in the north, Russia has a common border with Scandinavia, Finland, Norway, whatever. And then Mr. Dimshitz took a flight to check it, and he told that it's beautiful, it fits us beautifully. He told that the airplane would land in a forest, and it was a small place just to land, and there was no guards, anything. So we figured that the moment the pilots would open the door to let us out, we would invite the pilot to stay for a while on the ground, and Mr. Dimshitz would take the guide, and he told that it's a small airplane only for 12 passengers, so he told that it will be able to go over the trees, that the radars on this height of some 10 meters cannot detect anything. And then we shall go over Finland, and then over Baltic Sea, and we shall land in Sweden, and then we shall have a press conference and call upon world Jewry to join us in our struggle to save Soviet Jewry. I can't believe that somebody, a young man, could refuse it, this beautiful plan. If he would refuse, he is not a young man, he's an old man, And people say, nowadays, would you join again? It's difficult to say, but I believe so, For it's the biggest joy in your life. I thought, what? I can do something that the biggest Jews in their life did, like Moshe Rabbeinu, that take their nation from Egypt, like I know Mordechai Mendelevitch, that fought against the Nazis in a Polish ghetto. And it is me, a small ugly Jew, became a fighter for Am Yisrael. Wow, it's a real dream. I was excited, I expected the day that will come. So obviously,
Because sometimes enthusiasm can lead you also to doing not such great things.
I was drafting people to be part of this operation. A young man, very capable. After a while, he told me, let's sit again and think again about all the procedures. I told him, Tzvi, you have right. We didn't think about everything accurately, and it's good. If we start thinking again, it can turn out that we cannot do it. But we would like to do it. It is why we are not thinking anymore. He looked strangely, and later on he told me that his grandmother is ill, so he has to go to see her, and he never joined us. So, you can calculate everything. In your life, what is important, if you believe really that it is truth, if If you believe in it, do it.
We had people who want to blow the Al-Aqsa Mosque. How do you tell a young person to distinguish between his truth being productive or being destructive? At the age of 15 or 17, a lot of people can make or get carried away or follow Mashiachei Sheker.
I can't give advice to other people. But my privilege was that I was a part of a Jewish nation. And we know that our Torah never demand terrorize other people. It's not our way.
Free your own people. You wanted to free your own people.
Your own people. And it is why if I was along the concept, the general concept of my nation, I could never do something, as you mentioned, or blow out buildings or whatever. It's not our way. And it is why I described you how we planned to take over the airplane, not killing anybody, not harming anybody. More than that, we planned if we would succeed, go over to the Sweden, we would immediately return the airplane to the Russians and even pay the gas, all the expenses, you know.
Well, so tell us, how did it go? You came to execute this plan, and somehow you met and you had suspected that the KGB is following you, and yet you decided to continue.
As I told before, the desire comes before calculations. A day before we had to board, the first part of our journey was altogether illegal. So we went to a forest close to the airport, and we were like a regular tourist. We made fire, a normal tourist.
Barbecue.
Barbecue. So we sat there and discussed. We had to decide exactly what everybody is doing. And all of a sudden, we saw two black cars coming to our direction, and it was obvious that it is a KGB cars. So some people walk out from the cars, going around, like looking for something. We were tensed. Nothing happened. They went back to the cars and rode away. But it was obvious that we are being watched. And up to now, I can't explain why they did it, to demonstrate that they know about us. So discussing the issue, I told, see, friends, the moment we started out from our apartments, it's our victory. If we come back, they certainly will arrest us in any way, but it will be our failure. We started the way, we have to continue, whatever will happen with that. And the majority agreed, accepted my position. For the resolution to go and to fight for Israel is a victory. For you need a hard stomach to make the decision, and you are not permitted to give up. So finally, in the morning, we went to the airport. It was start boarding, and there we were arrested. And it was it's like another life, a life in a prison, a life of somebody that lost the battle. For not only that we were arrested, my friends got broken, started cooperating, giving names of other people. Some more activists were arrested. And I felt very bad. I blamed myself for doing it. You know, for the beginning, as I told you, I was very enthusiastic. But all of a sudden, I saw the reality, and I felt that it's bad, you know. I never could bring harm to other Jews. And I created, you know, another situation for, I remembered my father being arrested, KGB people, it was police, coming in our apartment, searching everything, arresting my father, and we stayed with my crying mother alone. It was terrible. And now I did it to other fellow Jews. I blamed myself. I felt very bad. I was ready to die, no problem. But to bring misery to other people, I was not ready. And then I felt bad. For all the time, I asked myself, so what will happen? What will happen with me? How I have to behave? It was a real experience, you know, of asking the question every day, what will happen? What will happen with me? I was really ill, really ill. And then, after a month, I told to myself, stop worrying. Don't worry. You did something good. You have to hope that everything will be good and smooth. And it was my dimension of freedom, that I felt quiet and comfortable. I try to do the best. I do something very good and important, and I believe that it will be finally good. Who helped me to make the decision? Okay, I am a believer, so I know that it's the God, Ribbon Shalom, helped me, but it was very important. Otherwise, I couldn't withstand it.
So finding the faith inside of you, the strength inside of you, absolved you from needing to find other answers that you couldn't find, and you didn't need to follow anybody. It's all inside of us. If you just know how to look for it, it's all in there. That's what faith has taught you early on when you were a young man, and probably now that you look back, you wonder how you did it.
I'm ready to do it again.
That's great.
This decision, to stop taking care of being worried, it's like it was an effort to find a balance. It's like a self-protection. Another way was start cooperating with the gods, giving names, and feel that they will help and that you will get less penalty. But I couldn't do it. I can't betray my friends. And there was something not less important. As I mentioned, the friends cooperated and give evidences against me. It was bad, All of a sudden, I was alone. How it can happen, that my friends, heroes, become traitors? And looking for balance, I told, no, they are not traitors. I trust in my friends. Certainly, the KGB officer telling me some information that looked like it's being told by my friends, I don't trust in it. It was illogical. I find the proper balance to trust in friends and to trust in whatever we did, and everything would be okay. Optimistic.
Well, then came the trial. How did that go?
During the trial, indeed, I can say that I expected this penalty. I am a short-thinking guy. You ask what will happen with you? I had no time to think about myself. So when I entered the court, I never thought what will happen, what penalty would I get.
But they helped you think, because they tried to get you to cooperate, and they tried to convince you that you are a Russian after all, and if you just surrender, then they will take care of you.
For the beginning, they sent me to a mental institution and intimidate me that if I don't cooperate, they will treat me medically, and I would become really crazy. The moment it wouldn't work, so they changed their politics, as I say, a stick and a carrot. Now it was a carrot, saying me I had a better interrogator than in the beginning. The first one was yelling and intimidating, was cruel, and this one was very quiet, very polite, and he told me, I sympathized you, and he told me, oh, I understand, you have values and principles, but you have to be realistic, you have to understand that it's it, you are in our hands. So give up your values, you have to understand. Later on, you can keep up again your values, but so far you have to understand that you cannot break the wall with your head. And I felt I cannot give up my principles and later on pick up. So anyway, it was a psychological struggle between me and him, and it was very important to show him, for the moment the enemy knows you are strong, he steps back. And I created myself in a cell as a Jew to make him understand that I'm Jewish, that I don't belong, and it was a way to prevent him pressing on me, for I was really not that strong. I was weak, I was afraid. But the moment he understood that I am a crazy, fanatic, religious Jew, forget about that.
So I heard you talk and use that word crazy fanatic Jew, that it helped you to create a wall between you and them, and that you fought to show them that you're not like them. Tell us more about that.
It is not only that I tried to persuade them that I'm Jewish, it was to make me remember that I'm Jewish. You are in a jail, you know, you mix with other prisoners, you lost yourself, you know. I told to myself, I have to keep it like I was before the arrest, for you understand that my connection to emunah, to beliefs, was very weak. I was not enough knowledgeable, and I was afraid that in the jail I will lose everything. I was afraid of it. So it is not only that I tried to show the investigator and the authorities that I am Jewish, and the opposite was true as well, to keep myself remember that I am Jewish. And I understood that the only way I can keep myself being Jewish is to keep mitzvahs, to keep Jewish tradition.
So fear made you brave.
It was not a fear, it was a calculation how to save my... I was not afraid, you know. I am a fighter, and when you fight, you have to calculate what to do the best. I believe that the officer in KGB were surprised themselves, you know, they couldn't understand how a man that got our Soviet education is different from us.
At some point, you knew that your fate is sealed. What did you think is going to happen?
I never think too much in beforehand. Sometimes it's good, you know. I never thought maybe they will execute me or maybe I will get life sentence. It was not my way of thinking, you know. I just expected it would be over. Who knows? If I would really be sentenced to death, I don't know how I would behave. My resolution was to behave in a proper way, you know, to be strong, not to give up.
Now, at this point, just to make it clear, the world didn't know about you. The world didn't know much about Soviet Jewry. It's not like what we hear now after the 70s and 80s.
That's true. You know, Elie Wiesel used to visit Russia several years before our arrest, and he published then his book, The Silent Jewry. The majority got assimilated, and they were aware that the Russian Jews were the leaders of communist revolution, so somehow they believed that we enjoy being communists. And it was our task to publicize our case, to make people think differently. Here in America, you had that time a very small group, but a very resolute group with Yaakov Birenbaum, who passed away this year, and Glenn Richter, and other people that, and certainly Rav Meir Kahana, that didn't know exactly, but they had a feeling that there are still Jews alive. And then the moment there was a trial, and it got somehow publicized that the Jews tried to hijack a Russian airplane, they told, it is exactly what we expected. It happened. So we met, you know, American Jewry met the Russian Jewry.
So you're sent now away after the trial?
Yeah, it was a whole struggle for, you know, to cancel death penalties and soften other penalties. So finally, the death penalties were canceled, and I got only 12 years of imprisonment, and then we were sent to serve our time. On the way, you know, the Russians would send the prisoners in trains, and I saw a lot of prisoners being pushed in wagons, and I was afraid to be with them, you know. Can imagine sitting like that without any air to breathe. But all of a sudden I would put aside, for in my folio was written specifically dangerous political prisoner. I was that dangerous that I could be seated with anybody. So it was a privilege.
First class.
Yeah, indeed, I was first class. And then they put inside a bunch of letters. I opened one letter written by a friend that was a member of my group. He was searched and questioned but not arrested. And he would say, Yosef, we got permission to leave to Israel. And then I opened another letter, a couple would say, Yosef, we are on a border with Hungary, which meant that I'm going to Israel. And then a cable for my two sisters, Yosef, we got permission to leave. And then I understood that whatever we dreamt about happened. The gates of immigration were opened. And then I thought to myself, if really we would succeed and be able to hijack an airplane, maybe it would never happen. For still, to hijack an airplane doesn't sound good. But the moment we were arrested and we fall in trap, we became victims. And there was a reason to struggle for our freedom.
We skipped one part here. What happened in the trial? In the trial, they tried to make a typical communist propaganda case, where the victims will denounce their Jewish influence. Tell us what happened.
I expected that something terrible would happen on the trial, for I did know that my friends give up and start cooperating with the interrogation. So I figured that they will stage a big performance, that everybody would admit guilt for Jewish influence and whatever, and blame a world jury for infecting with the strange ideas. And then the first was Mr. Dimshitz to speak. He was in a terrible situation, for he certainly expected death penalty. He was a leader of the group. He organized the whole plot, and his wife was in prison as well, and his two small daughters were arrested. And he cooperated with the very beginning. So I waited what will happen. They asked him, Mr. Dimshitz, you were a major in Russian Air Forces. And then you got university education, You got everything from your Russian motherland. How at all you come to betray your Russian motherland? And he was a very courageous man. I believe he bluffed them during the interrogation to make him be able to make these statements. So he came up and he blamed the Soviet Union. He told, you are anti-Semitic state, you closed all our educational institutions, you try to suppress us, you try to assimilate us. And the very reason that you are supporting the Arabs against Israel is that you hate the Jewish state and you would like to eliminate. It is why I decided to fight against you. They couldn't expect. It was like a big surprise for them that this man broken is speaking out. And he set a mode of conduct for other prisoners. So everybody stood up and declared it was Hanukkah time. So I imagine that everybody of us is lightening his candle from his body and from his flesh, declaring, Ani Ma'amin, I don't give up, we continue. So it was a big deal, and then certainly I was the last to be asked for the reason that I tried to escape from Soviet Russia. And they told, it's your motherland, you were born in Soviet Russia, how you go to betray your motherland? I told, doesn't matter where a Jew is born. It's his motherland is Eretz Yisrael. And then I told the God, Ribbon Shalom, gave Eretz Yisrael to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and I'm their grandchild, so it's my place to be there. Stop it! Another guy from the prosecution told to the judge, in vain would you ask Mendelevitch the question, don't you know he is a religious fanatic, He told, you can't understand how the man got university education, and it is that limited in his interest. He is interested in nothing except of his nation and his Torah. Like to show the judge that I have to get the biggest penalty, that bet I am. And I felt that he admits that I won the battle. For only half a year ago, where they would say, you are a Russian guy, what's special with you, you don't know anything about Yiddishkeit, you got our Russian culture, whatever. They felt that I am their slave. And all of a sudden it turned out that I am a free man, And how I became a free man? For I would like, I enjoy to do whatever I like to do in my life. I like being Jewish, and this is how I am a free man.
They say you can take a person's sweat, but you cannot take his thoughts and his heart. It reminds me when they asked Anatoly Sharansky when he was free, a journalist finally asked him, "So do you enjoy being free?" He said to him, "I was always free."
Sure, that's my answer.
Yeah. So now you prove to them, they punish you, they send you away thousands of miles away to the cold Ural, Siberia, to the gulags.
Ural mountains.
Tell us about what goes through your mind.
Going to the labor camp, so-called like a concentration camp for political prisoners with hundreds of prisoners inside. So I start thinking how I can arrange my life to keep my mitzvahs.
Just to explain, you were trying to keep what you thought was mitzvahs, but you did not exactly know.
When I arrived to this labor camp, I met a Jewish boy, and he told me that he dreamt for 2 years that somebody would be sent to his prison to teach him being an observant Jew. He got 5 years of imprisonment. He decided, since now, I'll be an observant Jew. He made a decision, but he didn't know, like me, what does it mean. So he asked me, teach me. And I told him, see, we have to keep Shabbos. It's important. We have to avoid to eat treif food. And then we have to get a siddur and a chumash. We have to start learning. And we have to cover our heads. So it is all program as every regular Jew would expect to do that. Also, it was almost impossible, but we did it everything. We could keep Shabbos and try to avoid eating treif food, and we got a siddur and a chumash. We achieved everything.
Tell us about the story of making your yarmulke and how you got your Sfarim back and how you accomplished all those small little miraculous things.
The whole story to tell, it's in my book. Anyway, I'll bring you an example. They never produce in Soviet Russia yarmulkes that you can buy in a shop. So my friend got some pants, and we cut his pants. We got some pieces of cloth, and I made a yarmulke with a thread and a needle to him and to myself. And then after a while, the officer demanded to remove the yarmulke, otherwise he will punish me. So I refused, so they beat me, took away forcibly my yarmulke and that of my friend Shimon. But we had more pants, so we produced more yarmulkes. And for a longer time, they would punish us, and we shall continue to wear our yarmulkes until they give up. And they told, the crazy fanatic Jews, stop it.
So you won that battle.
Almost, but later on it turned out that it is not a real victory. My father came to see me, and when entering, I was stopped by an officer. He told me, you're breaking our rules. You have the yarmulke. Remove it, or otherwise I will cancel your meeting. Wow, it's a real experience, I see my father, but I can't remove my yarmulke. I'm ready to die for that. I felt that I cannot harm the prestige of being Jewish for the reason to see my father. I am not ready to give up my Jewish pride.
Your identity.
My Jewish identity. So I refused, and it's how it was cancelled many, many times.
So how often your father came?
Each year.
Once a year?
Once a year.
And how far did he have to travel?
It was like from East Coast to West Coast. So it was Latvia to Ural and half of Russia.
About a week travel.
Yeah, not by fly, not by car, not by airplane. Just somehow was.
So he would spend a week to come to visit you, hoping to see you after a year.
Yeah.
And then
the moment Shimon was released, he came to see my father, and he explained the reason. So I believe my father was proud of whatever I did, and I felt somehow satisfied. Anyway, until he passed away.
Did you get to see him?
Never I could see him.
So all these years, he came to see you 7 times.
Yeah.
And you never got to see him because
It was a yarmulke,
Yarmulke that today people just put away. And
I felt bad, and I did understand that it is not the biggest mitzvah, but I understood that for me, the moment I give up wearing a yarmulke, it's a small step, but I will give up everything. When you start giving up, there is no end. For I did know that there is times in our Jewish experience, and I was ready to die for my yarmulke.
similarly, the story of your Sfarim. You want to tell us about that?
We managed for 11 years. We found all kind of guards that could be bribed to arrange that he would bring some books for him inside the prison.
Religious books.
Religious books. And once there was a general search, and they found my Sforim. I figured, what can I do? It was a challenge, you know. You feel that the Goyim are taking your religious books, your Sforim, and you can't do anything. So I decided I will fight back. And I arranged with an Ukrainian friend that the moment he would be released, he would pass over in information that my books, my Sforim, being confiscated, and I will start a prolonged hunger strike. I decided that I will pay back to God all the fasts that I wouldn't perform when I was not religious, and I figured it would come to some 100 days. So I decided...
About all the Yom Kippurs and all the Tisha B'Avs?
Yeah, everything. I will fast for 100 days, and then I needed time to pass the information to UN Human Rights Commission. So finally, my Ukrainian friend was out. I started this hunger strike, and they told me, you know, you have to work. If because you are not eating, you will not be able to work, we will punish you for refusing to work. So I had, even without without strength, I had to continue to work. Just to mention that I would drink water, for I needed a longer time, and it is acceptable, you know. It is known that if people would like to have a prolonged hunger strike, you drink water. For I did know that it's how I can continue. But after 3 weeks, they felt that I am really exhausted, and they sent me to a punishment room. But that time, my case was already publicized. So I spent another month in a hunger strike. They force-fed me. They saw that I'm going to die, so they put me on a chair, handcuffed my hands, and opened my mouth and threw, you know, the tube in my mouth, hoping that, you know, I will be afraid of it, you know, then I will give up willingly. And after 56 days of my hunger strike, finally the same head of the prison camp, he was very angry, and he told me, what, you continue to fight against Soviet Russia? You know, you can imagine almost dead prisoner, you know, and this big Russian guy, and he feels that I intimidate him, I am dangerous for him. So I told you, I am not against the Soviet regime. I have nothing in common with you, you know. Just give me back my Sforim and I will stop. So they give me some of the books. And when I was out from this punishment room, having the books in my hand, I was some friends. They were astonished. They were surprised to see that I am alive. More than that, I got back what I demanded.
You won.
Yeah, I won. They had asked me, how? And I explained them, you see, you know, we are all united. Am Israel is all together, worldwide united. So we support each other, and it's how I won the battle. So one of them told, yeah, it's true, you know. We Goyim are not this way, you know. We have to learn from you. I felt, you know, I know that this unity, it means I pass the knowledge to my refuseniks friends in Moscow. They passed it over to Jews in America, and Jews started this fighting for me. And I was told later on that when a Russian representative, a Russian diplomat, started talking about Israel violating the human rights of the Arabs, an American representative, I believe it was Ambassador Campbellman stood up and told, you Russians have right to speak about human rights. There is a young man is dying that you refuse to give him his Bible, and you call it human rights. So the Russian diplomat ran to call to Moscow, where it's true. And they told me, yeah, there is a fanatic Jew that, stop it immediately, give away. I can't anymore criticize Israel for violating human rights.
So through international pressure, and it should be known that actually your cause weakened the Soviet Union in a way that later on American presidents and American officials used the Jewish civil rights, tied it to every pact when the Soviet Union wanted to buy and to sign treaties, and in a way cracked the Russian wall, and 1.5 million Jews emigrated, which actually showed the Russian population that Russia is weak.
And more than that, you know, from the very beginning after our arrest, it was a massive involvement of Jewish and world public opinion. And just to remember that the main struggler for our rights was Senator Scoop Jackson. He came up with an amendment that Russia would not get a benefit in trade with America until they would permit every year some 50,000 Jews immigrate. Immediately after our arrest, the immigration started. And
so your success was not only important for Jews, but it was important for the world to crack Russia. It was the first crack in the wall.
It is nowadays accepted by historians that the human rights for Soviet Jewry to emigrate was the main force to crash the Soviet power. And it is what we say, you know. I remember the discussion with Jews in a prison that fought for freedom and democracy in Soviet Russia. And they told us, you Jews, you know, you are doing something wrong, you know. Instead of accompanying us in fighting and changing the face of Soviet Russia, you are fighting for your personal needs, you know. Stop it, you know, join us. We shall change and bring democracy to Soviet Russia, and then as a consequence, you'll get permission to leave. And it happened just the opposite. And it is what we say in Hebrew, Orle Goyim. And it is my belief that if we Jews united and we are fighting for our Jewish cause, it brings really freedom and peace to other nations. And I wish that other nations would understand it, that to support us in our Jewish business is the best way to achieve peace in the whole world.
So I asked you this question before. It seems that your case was a black and white case. You were with bad people and you were a good person, and good won over bad. But if you were in a more gray value system, how would you have dealt with your Judaism, with values?
I did know, and I know, that the world is not black and white, and there's colors in between. Each life, it's making decisions. Maybe somebody sees it black or white, but if you enough have a brain and you understand how complex life is, it's always the decision to what to do, you know. Maybe to compromise this time, maybe not to be strong. And I am only privileged that, you know, I had the guts to make a true decision. Maybe sometimes I was mistaken, I don't know. You know, certainly I was mistaken. There were situations that you never know. But in general, it
worked out. Had it been in a different period, 10 years earlier, the Russians wouldn't have kept you alive, probably.
Yeah, sure, they would kill me.
So it was a time of Russian evolution past Stalin that they were weak enough.
Yeah, you know, people say about Oliver Cromwell, it was the time that brought the man.
Yes.
So it was the time that brought us, you know.
The reality.
You know, maybe there were, and I believe that were previously Jews that tried to escape from Soviet Russia, whatever, and they were killed.
Yeah.
And it's privileged to feel the time.
The Col d'Ovado. So now, 11 years later, you're released through pressure, international pressure, and you go through Vienna you meet the ambassadors there and they ask you, what do you want?
It happened that when I was, I was thrown away directly from the prison to airport, and from airport to Israel. There was a time stop in Vienna. There was no direct flight, for Russia wouldn't have diplomatic relations with Israel. And when I was brought to Israeli embassy, the ambassador told me what you would like to have, like the best, like people that expect death, or maybe now is released. What would you like to have? I told, I need two things. I need an uniform of an Israeli soldier, for when we were in prison, we felt that we are soldiers of Am Yisrael, and I would like to appear in Israel like a soldier. And then I told, I need film for it soon ashkia, and never in my life, I am already 33 years old, never in my life I had that feeling I couldn't put it on, so I am not going to lose the day of my release. So the ambassador looked around. All of a sudden, there was a man, Israel Singer, Rabbi Israel Singer, that was an director executive of World Jewish Congress, and in fact, Mr. Edgar Bronfman was the factor that negotiated with the Russians my release, and then Mr. Edgar Bronfman sent Mr. Singer, Rabbi Singer, to meet me in Vienna. So Rabbi Singer told, strangely, before I left to see you, I called up the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, and I told I am going to see Mendelevitch, what to bring to him. So the Rabbi told, bring him tefillin. So it's a tefillin that I bought for you, on the order of Rabbi. So it's how, I became connected to the Rabbi. For I put me immediately the tefillin, and it was beautiful.
So the first chance to be free man outside of Russia, and you're validated that Sofo Ma'id al Tchilato, the end validates the beginning. You get the tefillin that you imagined, and he brought what you, like knowing that that's what you would want.
Getting the tefillin, I just come back to the pathway of every Jew. You have to have tefillin. I will mention you something else. The moment I landed in Lud airport, and journalists certainly ran to interview me, and they asked me, what's your vision of Israel? And I prepared myself to the question when in prison, and I told, Mamlechet Kahanim ve'am kadosh. So they immediately closed their microphone. They told a religious fanatic.
But I'm interested in what happened in Israel. You come to Israel, you had an image of Israel, you fight for the Jewish people. How do you find Israel?
I was aware that Israel is not a comfortable place, but it is a place that I can continue to struggle for my nation. And it was it, I never looked for a comfort or, that somebody would call me a celebrity. There in Russia, I could fight only to save Am Yisrael from Soviet Russia. In Israel, I was able to be part of the struggle for the future of Jewish nation. Immediately, I went to study. The next day, I already learned in yeshiva.
Wow.
If so, I continued.
So did you continue to see God's miracles in Israel?
All the time. And I will mention on the last miracle that happened only recently. My son is studying in Yeshivas Hesder, so he fought in a tank in Gaza. And we had no contact, but before he entered Gaza, he called me and I told him, try to read every day a portion of Tehillim, of Psalms. So later on, he come back and he told we have to have a feast like Sudas Odaya. For a miracle happened with me. And he explained how it happened, that it was a ceasefire, one of the ceasefire that were broken by Hamas, and they got permission to retreat in a safe place and just, to walk out from the tank, for they were for 48 hours inside the tank. But he decided, now it is a chance to read the portion of Tehillim. He wouldn't leave the tank. He stayed in the tank, and the moment he started telling the first Tehillim of Monday, Mizmor Shir Chanukah Sabayis LeDavid, he told there was an explosion, a blast, and they felt that the tank is being hit by the rocket and everything is lost, you know. So after a minute, he heard the commander of the tank ask, somebody is still alive? Everybody was alive. So they found on later that a real miracle happened, for the terrorist saw them on the screen, and he could, with his plastic, to manipulate and send the rocket exactly to the tank. And he, you know, it was close to the tank, and then it changed its course like 1.5 meters and exploded in the vicinity. So other people saw the explosion and they believed that it's still eliminated. So we say in Hebrew, a rocket is til. So thanks Tilim, he was saved from Tilim. So every day a miracle.
Well, not everybody survived, and it's a somber side, but in light of the fact that this God is merciful, caring, and all good, and your fate can be seen as protected by God, having a purpose, yet many Jews suffer terrible fates for no wrongdoing. How do you explain, as an observant Jew, any human pain? How can God allow that? How do you live with that? How do you feel about it?
I suffered myself all my life. If to look at it from a different angle, is sufferings. The father arrested, mother died, then I arrested, all the persecutions and a sentence and being in a trial depends on you, how you perceive what is happening. It is not that I expect, I hope and I pray that God, the Ribono Shel Olam, will protect me and my family and the whole Am Yisrael, but if it will happen differently, I am ready.
How do you explain that there's such great assimilation, especially when it's so easy to be Jewish today?
It's obvious, you know. And I would say, you know, that we religious people should be blamed for that. If, as religious people, we would set a model, other people would like to copy us. Indeed, we have good families or whatever. We have to think, you know, how to show what's good to be a Jew. What's the privilege? What's the joy? It's a real joy in your life. Everybody, every human being is looking to enjoy, to feel good. And we have to show it. That's really, it's an answer. You would like to enjoy your life, to have a pleasure in your life, join our club. We are a privileged club. Inside the club, people enjoy.
That's why I came to you, because you have so much joy. You emit so much joy of being Jewish. And in that spirit, what do you think will bring Mashiach?
I'm very optimistic, and I believe we can see and watch his steps here, in between, specifically in Am Yisrael and in Eretz Yisrael. But until he comes, it's our duty. We are doing it, you know. For just remember, we say that one of the capacities of Mashiach is to bring, as we say, kibbutz galuyot, to bring Jews back home. So we did it. We had in the beginning in Israel like some 100,000 Jews, and nowadays it is more than 6 million. So it's happening. Mashiach is coming.
There's always been the struggle between the inside and the outside, the state and the person, the rule of law and the individual, the teacher and the student, the boss and the employee. But with religion, with God, the inside knows the outside. Just like with love or with parenting, we accept and surrender, we make peace, we don't fight when we recognize. And is that your experience of faith? You recognize that it knows better what is good for you?
To begin with, a believer means to believe. What means to believe? To know that whatever you do and whatever will happen, and finally, is a God will, and accept everything. Now, sometimes it's unpleasant, maybe it is a mistake, maybe it is your mistake, and you have to make good decisions to fit. But whatever should be remembered, it's our deal. There is nobody to be blamed. We are not going to blame the Ribono Shel Olam that something is wrong with us. We have to blame to us and improve us. As a matter of fact, He delegates His power to us, to human beings, and it's our responsibility. Nobody to be blamed. We have to blame ourselves.
So as I promised you, my last request is to hear you sing a Zmira or two that means something to you.
Sure. שיר השירים אשר לשלמה ישקני מנשיקות פיהו כי טובים דוידך מיין. It was my father, a communist, would sing in our apartment. I wouldn't understand.
Keep going.
Yes, I don't remember all by memory, but it was my a background, a deep background of my communist education. Always I did know that something strange is happening, that we speak Russian language and we have another language, a secret one. Ishakeni miyayin ki tovim doidecha miyayin. Ishakeni min shikot piu ki tovim doidecha miyayin. Shir HaShirim.
And another Zmira that is you enjoy singing.
I have a very heavy. I am singing only with my son when they come from
So sing with your
yeshiva.
son. Imagine your son is here and sing with him. Sing for him.
Okay, on Shabbos table it comes immediately to us, but when you are in this,
Start in the middle.
Baruch Elyon Asher Asa Menucha Lenafsheinu Pidyon Miset V'Anacha Dehu Yiten LeTzion Iran Hidacha Adam Atugyon Nefesh Nenacha Ashoimer Shabbat Mibeinim Habat Leker Yeratzu Kemincha Bavat. That's it. Thank you.
I'm so glad that we managed to do it.